Hello and welcome to the morning show with Reverend Gilberto Rosado. How are you all? Welcome this morning. We're going to get into a very important topic. I'm going to share with you all and the world a peace plan that should end all conflict. It's plain and simple. This broadcast should be shared amongst all your friends, contacts, social media, and particularly with the leadership of your countries, NATO, the UN, and the countries at war. On Twitter, you can put it on Twitter, wherever you have access, and and do your social activity to get the word out of this peace plan. This will put an end to all conflict at the national, international level, as well as in an interpersonal level. We are going to talk about eliminating, putting an end to all of this nonsense, because it's just simply nonsense. And this killing, the turning point has come, right? With the Charlie Kirk thing and this unfortunate loss that the whole world has suffered. It's just simple. Human life has to be respected and valued because each one of us are important in our own way. We add something. It's like pulling out a thread. When you start to pull out a thread from a piece of cloth, the whole thing starts to begin to weaken. And if we start killing each other in the micro and then in the macro, it's terrible. It adds up. The missing pieces. Sometimes just things are solved with just one single piece of information, one contribution, and every time a soul, a fellow brethren, or even not allowed to be born, or are extinguished after birth, that's a loss. That is a loss to the world and to our future. We are killing off our future. So this is an important presentation today. I'm not going to put anything. There's no graphics. It's impromptu this morning, but I'm sure that I will put all this together in some type of presentation form. But for now, it suffices that we're going to get into how to have peace. You are part of an organization. You are part of a nation. You are a leader of a nation. You are a part of the UN. You are in NATO. You are just a small country, a small island country someplace in the world. You are a church leader, right? Or you are just a church goer, or just a person that's another fellow human being. How can we all promote and bring about peace? And so this is what we're going to talk about today. This will immediately impact your lives. If you apply this plan to your marriage, it immediately will put an end to marital strife. It immediately will put an end to any war, Ukraine war. You want it to stop? Then today do what I'm going to talk to you today, what I'm going to reveal here today. If you want the war, any war in the world to end today, then this is what needs to happen, what we're going to discuss. The UN. The UN is discussing things like, officially accusing or stating that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza and whatnot. This whole issue with Gaza and Israel, Hamas, and all of that, today what we're going to talk about will put an end to it. Now, these other ways that the UN is going about and what other people protesting and all of that, this is not going to effectuate peace. It satisfies your anger, your ire at the moment, or your need to take action. And of course, when there's nothing else, there's no better option, well, then that becomes the only one, right? It's like a baby crying in the crib. He wants attention. Hey, pay attention to me. I don't like this. I don't like the way I'm feeling. But there's no plan of action with that. So, the protests, they serve a purpose to sound an alarm, but they don't provide a plan. In other words, they're not helpful to the parties in how to solve the situation. So today, in lieu of just adding a voice out there, I'm going to give you a plan. And this is the plan. To put it in a more simpler format, the plan is based around the word itself, peace. Okay, just to put it as a basic structure, it needs more elaboration, and I can elaborate further, but for the sake of the broadcast and for brevity, we'll just go through the simple points here. Now, the most important thing of war to understand that war, the conflict will not bring about peace, not true peace. Conflict only brings about a winner and a loser. And you can bring about an end to hostilities eventually, but you will be left with a winner and a loser. And that will always be a source of contention in the future. It's only a temporary peace in that way. That's why this issue with Israel and Hamas, really, I don't think Israel's really against the Palestinians, directly. Some people may disagree with that, but again, the Palestinians, weren't the ones who came into Israel and did what they did, right? So again, there is clear reason to be contrary to Hamas, right? So that's where it is. Now, everything else that's happening, we're not going to justify it or not justify it. We're not going to take sides. This is not the way we're going to resolve this issue. When the UN, either sooner or later, they're going to take a side. This is going to be detrimental in the long run. And why is that? Because, again, you are facilitating a winner and a loser. And as long as you have that, you're always going to have the conflict, right? So we can't have that. Now, people who are thinking a little bit animalistically, they want to have a victor. It's complete victory, annihilation of the other side. Okay. So, but the world that's not palatable in today's society. It's simply, we have moved on from ancient civilizations and the conqueror mentality. Same thing with Russia and Ukraine. I mean, who's trying to conquer? Well, it's not Ukraine. Ukraine is not the offender, right? The Russian, what do they want? So they want total domination. You're going to do what we say. You're going to subject to us in order to have peace. No, peace cannot be a negotiated surrender. That's not peace. Peace is not a negotiated surrender. Okay, peace, it means something else. It means a mutual equality. That's what peace is about. So if you don't have a mutual equality, an equitable agreement and coming together, you don't have peace. You have a slave master and the slave, right? You have the overlord and the lesser, the servant, the one that has to follow and obey, because that is, and you call that you can't call that peace. You simply cannot. It's not going to be peace. And there was never peace. Even with the slaves, historically, there was no peace. Clearly, the overlords, the slave owners and slave masters had overwhelming power and authority, but there was no peace. So you can't call any of that peaceful. So again, what is peace? How are we going to have peace? Well, the first thing that for the two parties, there has to be, they have to come together. And the process of peace begins, and it has to begin with partnership. P for partnership. Okay? So it doesn't mean that you're going to start off with 100% partnership, but it means that we're coming together as partners. The two parties must come together with the mentality that two partners are coming together. And where are we 100% in partnership? In the peace process. The peace process has to be based on partnership. And in that way, you begin peace by coming together for peace as partners. And everything else, you are warring, you are in disagreement, you are in conflict. But we're coming together on this piece of land, which we will call any place you come together. It's a neutral ground for peace. So while we are conducting this process, we are at peace and partnering for and toward peace. So that's where peace begins. So that's number one. It has to be without any reservation. It has to be that both parties are fully committed to peace. Okay? Now, because there's a reason why the war started. There's a reason why the conflict began. There's a reason why the disagreements are had. Okay. And in many cases, these reasons are based on a lack of understanding. Right? Based on a lack of understanding, a lack of communication. Somebody is feeling or knowing that they are not being dealt with equitably, right? There's something that they are expecting, something that they are requiring, something that they need, and the other party is not paying attention, ignoring it, or maybe not fulfilling a prior agreement or prior arrangement. Maybe something has changed in the relationship that is causing this conflict. So again, where we can all meet on common ground is in partnership. And that's the first step. It isn't to take out a gun and start shooting. This Charlie Kirk thing is ridiculous. You guys are acting like children. The people who go towards their gun to solve the issue. This is childish. Totally childish. You have no brain power. No, none. No maturity at all. It's just simply ridiculousness. You might as well climb a tree and eat a banana. You're acting like monkeys. Apes. That's de-evolution. So if you want to be a human being, you think yourself a human being, then evolve towards partnership. This is what we need to look. It's not to break apart. It's to get together, to find solutions. The human race will not survive unless it gets together. It's not division. We're here wasting time fighting with each other when we should be exploring the cosmos, for goodness sakes, and getting rid of these wings on these airplanes. It's so it's like antiquity here. I've always felt ancient, going into an airplane, always. It was a funny thing I had always in my life. I said, why are we still flying around in these winged aircraft? We should be doing something different. But that's the thing. How can we get into the future if we're fighting ourselves in the past? We're still dealing with silly nonsense on this planet. We have a universe to go out and explore, for goodness sakes. All right. So again, and here's an appeal to Elon Musk. Elon, please save this planet and open up the cosmos. Because that's really, we're all itchy here, smelling each other's armpits, and we can't take it any longer. We need to do something. We need more space. So, there's ample space in the universe, ladies and gentlemen. We can have our space. We have it's been provided for us by the divine providence or other. We have it by, other sciences. But in any case, we have room. We have room to grow and to expand. We have things to do. We have, places to explore. Strange new world. Star Trek? We have better things to do than be here throwing rotten eggs at each other, and bombs, and shooting pieces of metal through somebody's neck is childish, ridiculous, irresponsible, stupid. Same thing, a monkey, would they give a monkey a gun? That's what they do. What do you think he's going to do? So, this is the ridiculous aspect of this all. Any nation engaging in war right now, you're immature. It just shows that you're immature. People need to get together, not be apart. As far as I can see, even with Charlie Kirk, I didn't hear his messaging or anything. I keep myself separate from messages at this point. I give them. But in any case, Whatever was his spiel, he got attention. But again, anything, there should be no one, being so angered where you can't sit down and talk. Talking is always the best option. That's what he was doing. You see that? He was talking. So maybe he was as immature as anyone else, but at least he was talking, wasn't taking a gun and shooting everyone, right? And some of the people who are speaking about his hate talk or comments he made, they were comments, they were not bullets. That's the whole point. Doesn't matter what he said, he has the freedom to say it, right? But you do not have the right to take and extinguish a life. If he truly was the hateful person that you guys claim he would have taken a bullet, right? And had his hatred, realized. He didn't do that. Somebody else did, right? That is always wrong. That is where the childishness comes into play. If we don't express our feelings, then how are we going to advance as human beings? You don't have to agree. No one has to agree with what I say, but we can have a conversation. As rational adults, we can speak about it. Let's talk about it. So let's partner for a solution. So basically, there should be... Why are there so many protests? Protests. Instead of protesting, we need to be partnering. Let's find a way to resolve this. We feel this way and that way. You guys are feeling this way and that way. Let's sit together and let's find a solution. But the protesting, not that you don't have a right to protest, we have rights to protest, but I'm talking about advancing civilization. Protesting is really like you have no other option. You have not extinguished the option. Everyone seems to be running to protest, number one, and then they're speaking so much hatred and garbage against the other side. No one sat down yet with the other side to discuss things rationally as mature adults, as people with a brain. It's all about talking and destroying, attacking, accusing, and not admitting when you guys are wrong, when you have done something wrong. Accept the blame. Listen, we did wrong. We did this. We tried to do this to you. We deprive you of this and that, and we own it. We accept that we did the wrong thing. And you know what? And be equitable. Compensate. Be just and fair. Don't simply just forget about it. That's the past. We don't be fair about things. So this is part of the partnership. As I say, each of these steps is complex because it goes to remediation of past hurts, past issues that have not been resolved, past injuries that have not been cured, have not been compensated for. And this is the first step in developing a peace, is to partner with the other side. Partner with them. Fix their wounded. Tend to their wounds that you caused. Tend to that. Take care of that before even getting to anything else. This is the first thing. We did this and we caused you harm. We caused you damage. We caused you injury. Let me fix this first thing before we say another word. Let's take care of this now. This is, you see, and this is where then the injured party or side says, oh, they're meeting up. They're owning up to what they did. What I feel that I've been injured, they are taking care of that right off the bat. This then sets the play field in the partnership area and space in an equitable frame of mind and truth. In truth. Because now I can't come and say, well, you injured me and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. There's no more of that. Because, I said, I apologize. And apologies are not just saying, oh, I'm sorry. We have to, I always tell my kids, I said, don't just say sorry. What does this say sorry? We're taught as children. This is the problem. As children, we're taught to, hey, you got to say sorry. And you know what? And we stay with that all throughout our adult lives. Oh, we think that saying sorry is all we have to do. No. So I always teach my kids, it's not saying sorry. It's being sorry. Being sorry. When you say I'm sorry, it's not just a saying. You're supposed to be sorry. And sorry is something that you do. It's not something that you say. What? Yeah, no one heard of that one, did you? No, because see, that's what people think. People think that being sorry is to say you're sorry. And you even hear it in a mature adult. Oh, say sorry. Say you're sorry. Why? What does that do? It doesn't do anything, because the issue is that a person has to be sorry. And in truth, when we live our lives being sorry, having the consciousness that we have to be sorry in case we do something wrong, that makes us be careful to not do something wrong to begin with, so that we don't have to say I'm sorry because we didn't do the offense in the first place. We remained doing the right thing for the right reasons, and no one can point a finger at us saying, oh, you did this, you did me wrong here and there. And because then it becomes an issue that if you really didn't know, oh my goodness, you say that I did this and that, I ignored you because I'm minding my own business, right? I'm not going to do anything to bother someone else or make them feel angry at me. So what do? I stick to my own business. But then there's always someone that say, oh, you offended me. I say, how did I offend you? No, because you ignored me. You went in here, you have been here, this amount of time, and you have totally ignored me. So, oh, I'm sorry. You didn't do it on purpose, but it happens because you're being overly cautious, right? So that should be the only thing that could possibly happen, is because you're being overly cautious in being careful and not to offend someone, not to do something to harm, cause injury, that in fact you do, because then now they want some attention. So that can happen, yes, indeed. But it shouldn't be that we're going around just ignoring what other people's, rights and property and area of expertise or of responsibility, etc., and then causing an offense with our neighbors. So that is the issue. So you don't want to do that. So we want to patch up what damage we have done to begin with, regardless of why we did it. It's simply, you suffered damage, I'm going to fix that right now. It doesn't matter that I did this because you did that. Because see, that's where it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's ridiculous. When you do the right thing, the other side has to do the right thing too. So yes, you correct the things that you did wrong. And then it's up to the other person, the other posit, the other nation, to also fix what they committed wrong, without having to make them feel like children or, embarrass anyone. Just simply listen. When we're partnering for peace, it's an opportunity for us to just come clean, fix what we broke, the dishes we broke, replace them, and let's start, at the square one, which is peace, which is partnership, right? That's the peaceful area. Partnership is the peaceful area. And we're getting here together to discuss how we can expand on this partnership. So that's the first thing. So the second step from partnership is E, right? PE is equalization. Now, equalization involves coming from repairing what you damaged before, what you did before, and the other person or the other country doing the same. Because now, okay, it's let's repair. Let us replace what we broke. Either at the beginning or after you did what you did. Doesn't matter. We're not gonna deal with that now, right? What we're doing is having equalization. We want to have this partnership. We want to be at peace. So as each side does that, then it goes into, you already have the exercise, the praxis, the beginning of equalization. Because after we do this, then we become, okay, let's sit down and let's discuss why we are in disagreement or inequality. What's happening? What do you feel? Or what do you know? Sometimes it's not just feelings, but they're actual things, substantive matters that have to be dealt with. So what is it? And then here's where equalization must be had. What does equalization mean? It means hearing the other side and taking what they say to the exact degree that we have our most important points at. In other words, if we feel that XYZ is really the thing that hurt us, that we require, that this is what injured us, then accept their ABC equally as needed and hurtful to them as the XYZ is to you. Equal. You cannot look at the other side and put their needs below yours and put their complaints as being less important and less significant than yours. You cannot put your own priorities over theirs. This is the second part of partnership, is the equalization of needs, the equalization of priorities, the equalization of the issues and their significance and importance. So when as we take their complaints or their needs, their requirements, whatever, I'm being very general because this has to do with marriages all the way up to friends and marriages and all the way up to international affairs. When we get to then hearing and the other side positing, and there's different ways to go about it. It could be done by report, by presentation, one face-to-face, whatever. It takes many different formats at whatever level it's happening. Those things have to be regarded by the receiving side as their own, just if it was your own. Even if they're competing, like this is the only egg there is, and it's our egg, and the other side says, I want that egg, I need that egg. So you have to take each side equally. I need the egg, they need the egg just like I need it. And they have to see they want our egg and they need it just as well as much as we do. Okay? So it's just simply accepting and not putting down or casting aside or not caring about what the other side is saying or presenting is an issue. When we have equalization, we come down into the process of acceptance, PEA, in peace. acceptance, which means accepting that this is as important to them as it is for us. In the case of Russia and Ukraine, let's just say one of the things, which it is, but let's say it was mostly what it is, that Russia doesn't want Ukraine to become part of NATO. Let's say that that's a real thing that they are really concerned of. So Ukraine has to say they are concerned with that as we are concerned in joining NATO, if that's a fact. If they are intent in joining NATO and Russia doesn't want them to join NATO, and that's the point of contention, well, each side has to accept that it's as important to Ukraine to join NATO as it is for Russia for them not to join NATO. And why is it important for each side to accept that? Because then we can then proceed to finding a mutually beneficial agreement. What is the point of Russia attacking Ukraine? Is it to have them don't join NATO? Because, sometimes this fight can lead into it, right? It can lead into NATO getting involved. So is it going to be a win situation for Russia? I don't think so. Right? All right. So I'm not going to get into the politics of it. I just know that the better option is for a partnership in peace and to find a different solution that satisfies Ukraine's desires and wants. I mean, why do they want to join NATO? What's the reason? And Russia then has to, know this, listen to it, and see what we can do to satisfy the concerns that Ukraine has. Same thing in any relationship. What can I do to address the concern from the other side, the other party? It's not ignore what they say. I don't care. It's what I say. You do that. You're talking about equal parties here. And that's another thing, a mistake that these nations do. In today's society, in today's global political arena, most of the nations are considered equal. We're not looking at ancient considerations of you're small and insignificant, and then we're only dealing with the big boys here. I mean, that tendency will keep the war mentality going in the world. Instead of giving everyone an equal standing, respectfully, to have respect. And as long as nations, give honor and respect where honor and respect is due. We're not going to make a little small island nation to feel that they can tell, let's say, the United States, what to do. But, it's also, they respectfully, they can say, why not? There's going to be a brain. The leader of that small island nation can have a brain and say, United States, it's just a little observation and maybe a little suggestion. Maybe you can try this or that or blah. I think it may be something that can be used, and that's it, respectfully. And that's it. And, the United States should respect even that small contribution and say, I would take that into consideration. It's like a stakeholder. I seen Elon Musk do that with Kevin, right? I forget his name, the investor guy. Anyway, but he said to him, yeah, we'll look into that. Yeah, I know Elon Musk in his head was, there's a little peak squeak saying this or that, or maybe no, maybe he did respect what he said. But in either case, you simply do, receive, the suggestions, the observations, because, the Bible says wisdom comes from the mouths of children, from babes. And so things can be as simple as they see it. So the acceptance. And again, we're looking at equalizing and accepting. And we have to know, it's like in the United States, we are not governed by police. This is another thing that happens. There's a whole bunch of people protesting against police and this and that. And what's happening here in the country, and it's part of immaturity. We're progressing, but we're not matured enough yet. Because a lot of people live in fear of the police. And it's also due with the condition, the situation, still of immaturity and lack of understanding on everyone's part. It's not just police. The police have to get home after work. You know, Charlie wasn't a police officer. He suffered what he suffered. Imagine a police officer has to come right into the fray, and what are you going to say? Stop in the name of the law. It's a rough situation that police have to deal with, and like everything, police succumb to emotions and issues of self-preservation and how to deal with that. And some of them would have to become defensive and then offensive just on the get-go, just to establish authority in a situation area and whatnot. So this comes into the frame of mind, and then it dictates the actions that happen, right? So can a police officer come into a situation in a peace mode, right? Depending on how it is, he has to respond, right? So because other people are immature. If they're immature, then a police officer becomes a threat because they want to act like a child. They want to have a tantrum. The peace officers, in the old days, they used to call them peace officers, right? Not anymore. Now they're the police. So they come now. They have to come with more authority. There's too much childishness. Everyone got, they have guns. There's guns. You don't know who has a gun and who's childish enough to pull it out. Really, because it's not a resolution. You know this for one thing. The police don't come in with their guns blazing, shooting up the place. Right? It would be different. We could fear police if they would come in the door and they shoot and then after all the dust settles, say, okay, now tell me what's happening here. They don't do that. It's not gonna say you fear police if that's what they were doing. But they don't do that. In all my life, every time police officer came to me, they were asking questions, right? They asked the question, what's going on? How are you doing? Yeah, is everything okay? They're asking questions. And that's what they do. They ask questions because they want to assess the situation. It's simply that when the other people become stupid and acting immature and childishly, or induced by drug, since they're under alcohol, the power of alcohol, the influence of alcohol and drugs, then they act stupid. So the police officer has to respond accordingly, right? There's always a reason to respond, with force. Obviously, when the other party is not in their rational mentality. If you don't have a rational mentality, then the harness comes out. You're a wild or probably a rabid dog at that point. You ain't going to be having a conversation with an animal. So, of course, you understand? And then you have these perceptions in the communities that they feel that the police are too violent, aggressive, and things like that. Again, one thing builds on the other. That we have to stop it. You as a community member, as one side versus the other side, you need to stop it. And you need to latch on to the partnership. Look for partnership. The police are there to help keep the peace. So you need to receive the police officer or the opposing side as you see it, as an opportunity to partner. Okay, we have a problem here, and I can't seem to resolve it. And if it's a domestic issue, my wife or whatever, the child doesn't seem to want to understand. So maybe you can help us to reason and figure this thing out. You see, there's no need to fear the police. There's a need for communication, which is the fourth thing. The C of peace is communication. You need to find common ground. And the police is really there to help. He's a mediator between two other people having some issue. And so you need to then, if the other person's not listening to you, right? This goes for nations too. If this other nation is not listening to you, not hearing your concern, then another nation needs to avail itself. Listen, I'll come in as a mediator. Okay, so tell me what's happened. So that person or that nation, that mediator has to act as the partnership, has to forge the partnership. That third person or that third role is the partner, because these two don't want a partner. So then the other partner comes in. And in fact, in terms of world affairs, the world is that partner. If two nations can't find peace, then the world needs to come in as a partner to help forge peace. And so that partner needs to listen and equalize one side and gather the information and the complaints from the other side to equalize it. And both sides then need to partner with that third party and agree to partner for peace. See, there needs to be a partnership for peace. Same idea for the protesters. What's the protest doing? Making money for somebody who's organizing the protest? Or is the purpose is to cause more chaos and more social strife for whatever political ends there are, if not economical? So you got people involving themselves in protests. You have to question who's making money from me participating. You have to pay note, because these organizers, there's always some type of organizer, and he's running it like church. Be careful with that. Be very careful with the organizers who run things like church. You know what happens in church, right? You know what I mean. They're the cheerleaders. They say, in church we say, how many say amen? Oh, yeah. Hey, say amen with me. Come on, like that, right? And they say, come on, repeat this. Say this. The Lord is good. The Lord is good. The Lord is good. And they have these chants. That was done in church. But notice that the protesters do, the organizers do the same type of thing. That's called manipulation, folks. I call it what it is. That is called manipulation. You are being manipulated like little sheep because you don't know any better. They come, what do you want? Well, they say, well, let's say, what do you want? Peace. When do you want it? Now. What do you want? Peace. When do you want it? Now. All that's missing is the glory to God and hallelujah. That's the only thing missing. But they're using that churchy flavoring, that ambiance to manipulate you, to control you. They've always done this. They always taken from the church to manipulate the masses. So you need to be aware, first of all, that all these protests, although they're legal in the United States, it's a way for the people to come together. And in other parts of the world, they come and they're protesting this. They don't like it. No, we don't like this and that. And we can't wait for the next election. So we're going to voice let them know our complaints, right? But understand, people need to understand that when you're participating, you need to be looking for partnership. That should be the point. And the organizers, the head organizers need to state what their partnership is and that they're open for partnership. Instead of